Hello, legacy builders, and welcome back to another episode of the Legacy Pregame Podcast. I am your host, Marcella and Mollon-Williams, behavioral financial advisor for first generation legacy wealth builders.
And I am your co host, Mark Mollon, investment advisor, legacy strategist. And together, we are your legacy building duo, guiding first gen income earners like you from financial wealth to generational impact, one intentional move at a time.
Yes, and today we are diving into a topic that absolutely does not get enough attention. And that's why we're going into it, Mark. And we're talking about premarital financial counseling.
For those of you that are not watching me and just listening, I am shaking my head up and down. Yes. Okay.
I know you
This
know.
is this is a big one here. So before you say I do, you better make sure your dollars do too. Okay. So
Look, come on. Exactly.
come on now.
Dollars are saying I do too. We are really going into this. And again, talking to our first gen high earning couples. This is needed. You absolutely need this. You need to know what to do. You need to have this conversation before walking down the aisle, because building financial communication, emotional alignment, and shared values around money is so important. Of course, we're going to get into that, but let's start with why this conversation is necessary. All right.
Mhm. Hit
Sometimes,
him with some facts. Hit him with some
yeah,
facts.
as you know, there's some research here. We're not just here to talk the talk. There are numbers, there's research behind this. And one study from the National Library of Medicine shows that financial problems are one of the top 5 reasons for divorce, showing up in 38% of all cases, right behind conflict and infidelity.
38%. That is huge. And if you think money stress only affects couples struggling financially, think again, okay? That is not the case. I've seen six-figure earners split because they never discuss how to spend their money, how to save, or even define security. I mean, do not be fooled to think it's about more money. No, it's all about that mindset and coming together. So Marcella, let's break this down a little bit further here because I
Yeah,
can keep
no,
going.
exactly. And trust me, there's going to be, I know we're going to hear a lot from you at this, but I will say that when you add the first generation layer
Yes.
to this
Yeah.
conversation, meaning you're the first in your family to reach a certain income level, that's when money conversations carry even more emotional weight. And we've talked about that at, quite a few times in quite a few episodes, but not in this conversation. And that's why we want to have that. As a first gen, you're dealing with inherited money scripts. You have to remember those money scripts. You're carrying guilt and different upbringings, especially as a couple. There are different upbringings around spending and saving. So there's 2 people coming into this thing with
Yes.
inherited money scripts, guilt, shame around money, different upbringings. And so that's coming together. So premarital financial counseling isn't just about budgets. Are you hearing that? It's not just about the money and how we're spending the money and how we're saving the money. It's about preparing 2 independent people, 2 people coming together to be co-chief financial decision makers for the rest of their lives. I'm sure they understand the length I'm talking about, the
You're
rest
right.
of your life, and the responsibility that goes into being co-chief financial decision makers. So there's a lot involved there, Mark. Get started.
I agree. So this is why again we want to make sure we're being very intentional here. So let's start with this first step when it comes to our legacy pregame framework here. So again, legacy is an acronym. So the L in legacy is the legacy lens. Before you merge your money together, you have to ask, what are you building together? So too often we see couples planning a wedding, but not their wealth. there's no money talk, right, whatsoever. You have to define what legacy looks like in your union. Again, this is about being intentional, right? So you have this union. The question you can ask yourself is this a if this is a ownership, a entrepreneurship, as far as generational wealth for your kids, or financial freedom that lets you live the life that you own the terms of, right? These are
Yes.
just some of the overseeing questions you can ask yourself, or at least start having the conversations. I'm definitely gonna go into more details about this, but
Yeah.
again, when you think of the legacy lens, this is where you have to, Marcella, you said it earlier, right? Coming together and start asking some of these questions as far as what is this union building together. That's step one. So
That's
let's
so important.
yes.
Yeah, no, Mark, those are such important questions to ask. And when you know your shared vision, right? So again, when you ask these questions and then you start getting some clarity and understanding, and you develop a shared vision and you know what the shared vision is, decisions like joint accounts, investments, or even your career moves, all of those start to align with these conversation. Without that clarity, every decision becomes a power struggle. And I want you to
Mm,
understand that we're not just, this isn't guesswork. We're not just thinking, we're not just saying this because it might happen. We understand, we experience, we've been in this industry for over 15 years, Mark. We've seen the dynamics between couples. Without this clarity, hear my words, every decision becomes a power struggle. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
I'm just going to jump in here real quick, because what you're saying is so significant. It's not just a philosophical approach; it's practical here that we're
Yes.
talking about here. So, you know, keep in mind, when we like to bring some
Yeah.
statistics here. So,
Yeah.
according
Mark.
to the national data, the average divorce cost is around $15,000. And collectively, divorces cost taxpayers over 30 billion with a B dollars each year. That's money that could have gone towards your legacy capital if couples were just planning better, just preparing better. And I can't emphasize that enough. It's not
Yeah.
just about it's not just about coming together and living happily ever after. You need a plan, right? And
Absolutely.
Marcel, you said it earlier, right? You're two individuals with different habits, with different mindsets. Some of them are similar, some of them match each other. That's why you're coming together. But we cannot assume that everything matches, especially when it comes to money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And Mark, let me just go back because you said, let's look at those numbers for just a second. I have to go back to those numbers. Yes,
yes, yeah,
$30 billion each year for taxpayers.
yes,
And but let's narrow into that $15,000. The cost of divorce, and for some areas it could be less, some it could be
can be more.
significantly more.
Right.
And I understand from many listeners, you may not even heard of premarital financial counseling. And I know for others, you may not have heard of it, but you're like, oh, yeah, that's needed because you probably understand that that $15,000, if you've been through it, if you've experienced other people's challenge going through divorce, if you've been there with friends and family, you know the pain, you know the struggle. And Mark, I really like to think about what we do as, it's just really divorce prevention.
Yes.
I feel so strongly about it being divorce prevention, and it saves you so much money, heartache, pain, time, struggle. So
Mm,
I really want you to emphasize, I want you to pay attention to those numbers because I never want you to be in a position where you're thinking, well, I don't want to spend any money for premarital financial counseling. Like that is such an incredible investment of time and resources to pour into a marriage. So
Yeah, Marcel, I'm gonna jump in here as well,
please,
because
please,
when it comes to invent, I'm gonna speak from a guy's perspective, okay? So
please
you could
do.
I and with a financial hat, okay? So
Mhm.
when I look at a wedding day, and you look at the time, the energy, and the money that goes in to one day, right? To one day. We're talking about thousands of dollars that can well exceed $15,000 easily. Thousands of dollars that you're devoting your time, energy for one day. But as legacy builders, you're going for generations, right? For generations. And to set that foundation, the two of you have to come together and make sure the money's right from day one. That money has to be right as far as the both of you coming together with a common approach to your goals and your goal settings and those things that will help create generational wealth. So the same energy that you would put into the wedding day, well, that's time and energy and investing into your wedding day. I would say you need to put even more into your legacy, and that starts with the premarital financial counseling, so that, or I know you don't use this term, Marcella, but maybe break it down as a premarital financial coach to kind of walk you through this
Mhm.
process to make sure you guys are in the right alignment to now skyrocket your legacy. It starts with the little things, but you have to invest in it. If it's important to you, you have to invest in it. So that is what we're talking about here.
Yeah, such great points, Mark. Thank you for adding that. And so
Yes.
now, continuing with the legacy framework, let's look at E, Mark L. Now look at E for emotional mastery. And this
Mhm.
is where most couples hit the wall. This is when they come seeking us, as far as premarital financial counseling. And Mark, I've had so many sessions, and just about every couple I've worked with, at some point, tears were shed because of that
Mhm.
emotional part. You can't talk money if you can't manage your emotions around it. I'm going to say that again. You cannot talk money if you cannot manage your emotions around it. So
Mhm.
this is where we land, and this is what the emotion part is, because in the framework, this is the huge part that we emphasize as far as emotional mastery, emotional intelligence, financial intelligence, all of that is wrapped here. So we're talking about money conversations. We have to understand what conversations consist of, what the communication around money is actually about. And I want you to understand this, statistically speaking, and as far as research, 55% of communication is body language. 38% of communication is tone. And only 7% of communication is actually words.
That's crazy.
It's right. Exactly.
You tell me over a half of my communication is body language. That
It's
is
body
wild.
language. That is
Mhm.
wild, and I won't even get to why texting is such an issue right now, because I want you to think about that.
There's no body language.
No body language, no tone, just words, and why people always getting things mixed up there. So, yes, I mean, it's the when we're communicating as couples, when we're having these money conversations, how you talk about money matters more than what you're actually saying. And the way I've had to coach couples through this, it's actually a joy to be able to take couples through this process, and for them to get the aha and actually to learn to communicate in a way that meets their significant other in these money conversation, and meets them with their values. And there's so much that goes into this, but I really can't stress this part enough, because it ties into all your relationships and just about everything you do,
Yep.
understanding conversations. But in terms of money conversation and money communication, how you talk matters just as much, how you talk matters more
More.
than
Right.
what you say. Much more.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
Marcella, we, like I said, I've worked with couples have thought that they've had communication issues, and we're talking about couples that have not gone through the premarital counseling with you. So I've talked to them, and to discover that the communication issue, the core of it is really what we would call coming from financial triggers, right? So
Mhm.
one of the couples might have grown up in a mindset of scarcity. Then the other might have grown up with abundance. And so for the one to say, "Oh, we're spending too much," from one spouse, the other one could be hearing, "Oh, you're trying to control me," right? So the person's like, we need to save," coming from the mindset of scarcity, is telling the other person, or the other person is translating, "Oh, I'm used to spending. Why are you trying to control me?" Right. So I want to be very clear with that.
Yes.
This is why. This is why premarital financial counseling is so powerful, because it helps couples decode this money language. And Marcella,
Yes.
I cannot tell you the number of times, actually, I'm not even going to say that. Let me rewind here, because I'm going to say it differently.
Okay.
There's this assumption that the way I perceive money is how my spouse by default should perceive money,
Come
right?
on,
that
Mark, speak on
that's
it.
their I'm coming, right? Keeping it real here. So it's this assumption, right? And that is one of the most destructive forces I've ever seen in a marriage. Okay, it's this presumption when it comes to money. And look, I'm adamant about helping couples manage their finances. And if that means I have to do some financial counseling, and I do, it's not intentional, but it ends up being a part of what I do,
Oh,
is because
yeah.
I'm seeing that the two different languages that they're speaking, right? You know how they say men are from Mars, women from Venus, or something like that, right? So the truth of the matter is, their lenses are different, or their money dramas are different. So therefore, it has defined how they see money today. And the last thing you want to do is assume your spouse has the exact same experience you do. That
Yeah.
is destructive. That is unfair. And we need to nip that in the bud right now. We definitely have to stop that. So
Eh,
this is why the counseling, the financial, the premarital financial counseling is so important, because it does help each other understand each other, as far as those dramas. Why it's about those money habits, right, Marcella? That's
yeah.
what we're. It's a lot more than that, but yes, it really hones in to that aspect of it.
No, which with Mark, see, let me let the listeners understand this. I focus when it comes to our roles. I deal with the premarital. I am your premarital financial counseling coach. Mark is the family therapist. It's the marriage counselor. Okay,
Right.
Mark.
Therapist works too.
Yes, therapist, marriage counselor, marriage therapist. That's what he deals with. And I know, Mark, your experience where you've seen the aftermath of, and then you're
Yes.
trying to bring it together. So I know with what you just shared, that comes from real experience of years and years of marriage counseling when it comes to money.
Right,
I-
right. And if I can add something else,
yeah,
Marcella, because you got my brain firing here, but just to give a little example here, right? The assumption is, an assumption
mhm,
is that when you get married, all the money goes into one account, right? And from there, everything is paid for, and so on. And there's no right or wrong. It's what works best for your household, right? So there's not one size to fit all. It's about customizing the plan based on your specific needs. That's very important. But again, going back to assumptions, I've seen couples where one believes in having separate accounts, and one believes in putting everything together, but no one's talking about it, right? No one's
mhm,
talking about it. So then when they come together in a union, and they're like, "Okay, well, where's the joint account?" Well, what do you mean a joint account? And now you're having that
right,
conversation after you say I do. It's like, no, 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 no. And
right,
not to say one is wrong or one is right. What's important is you understand where each person is coming from. So you understand why your spouse is saying this. Not that I have to prove that I'm right. It's that, let
yes,
me understand, and then come to a mutual agreement. So I just want to emphasize that,
absolutely.
because too many times I'm seeing this argument because someone wants to prove they're right. And I would say not necessarily to be spiteful. It's just that
Yeah.
their view is that no, this is the right way of doing it. And but not understanding that, well, your right way has a lot of baggage that may come with it as well. And are you addressing those baggage?
Mhm.
So that's
No, those are
where
great points.
yes, go ahead. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, no, those are great points, and just to add that this is why we designed the premarital financial counseling program because of years of just of insight, of
Yes.
understanding this. We wanted to create preventative measures that couples can go through and a process and a framework that they can go through where they are able to learn to communicate and move forward more productively in unity again as co-chief
Yes.
decision makers. And this is why in the process, going back to the emotional mastery, and you can see why we spend so much time on this one.
You're right.
It's still on
This is
EMARC,
huge.
but this is huge, right? And in the program we tie in love languages. And I wanted to tie in love language because when you understand if your partner feels love through acts of service or gifts, you start to see how love and money are connected. So we talk
Mhm.
about money language, but along with money language, you have to understand love language and how they work together. So these are all the things that come in a premarital financial counseling program that it is very challenging to discover on your own.
Exactly.
It could take years and years of discovering these type of things, if at all.
Exactly. Yeah. So Marcel, what you're saying is that financial communication is emotional communication.
Yeah,
This
you
is
nailed
what I'm
it.
hearing. Yeah,
Yes.
that's what it
No,
sounds like.
it
Yeah.
is. It is
Okay.
absolutely. So just so to continue on to G, once you commit and once you've got emotional mastery and we're working towards that, it's time to set generational goals. Okay. So looking at the framework, generational goals, we tell couples all the time your marriage is not just about you, it's the first chapter in your family's financial legacy. And I think that
Exactly.
is so powerful. I think that is going back to this legacy lens. You have to understand that your marriage is setting a foundation for something
Mm.
bigger than you. And I don't think enough people really understand that, or perhaps take it a little too lightly. And that's why I want to emphasize that, Mark.
No, well, I'm glad you said that because as you were sharing that piece there, it really triggered in me that it goes back to what we always say that when it comes to legacy is how other people experience our existence. Well, when you become a union, well, that's a new legacy you create. That's a new experience that
Yeah.
you're creating. So it's not just you as an individual; it's you as a union coming together, and you want other people to experience that existence as well. So as you said, Marcel, it's much bigger than one of you or both of you together. And I'm talking specifically for my legacy builders. So this is why, if you're a first gen, high earner, this might be your first time. You might be the first person in your family, or most likely you are the first person in your family that's come together, bringing in, a six-figure income, bringing in a high credit score, dual high credit score, providing investment opportunities. This is all new territory for the both of you. This is new, and you don't have a playbook from previous generations. You are starting the playbook right now. This is why we want to make sure before you start to play, you understand the rules, you understand the language, you understand the parameters, right? So that's why we're bringing this up over and over again, so you guys make sure how important this is. So use this moment to define what generational wealth means to your household, right? So will it start with a family foundation, setting up custodial accounts, creating a family budget, creating a family budget that reflects both value and vision, right? So
Yes.
it's
Yes.
not just about we just need to make lots of money. I think we all know this by now. You've listened to us enough to know it's not just about making money. It's creating value and a vision that outlasts you.
Mark, and those are such important parts. And premarital financial counselor gives you the tools to plan for those, to address those questions before you say I do. Again, you mentioned it earlier how we spend so much time on the wedding, planning
Yes.
the wedding.
The
That's
wedding day.
one wedding day, right?
Right.
One day. Yep. Your wedding is one day, but your wealth is generational.
Mhm.
So, yes, you can choose to put all that energy into a wedding, or you can choose to put that energy into generational wealth. And so, and
Mhm.
again, we're not knocking having a nice wedding. We're not saying that
No,
have a nice
no.
wedding. Yeah, we're talking about legacy-minded behavior here. So it is about being just as intentional about moving forward in the marriage. So with that in mind, let's move on to alignment audit. Chemistry with alignment audit, chemistry might spark attraction, but alignment is what sustains a marriage. So, yes, all the lovey-dovey feelings and everything, all the excitement and the emotions, right? But we need to be in alignment in our marriage. And that's what the alignment audit is about. It doesn't mean agreeing on everything. And this is something I always try to make sure my couples understand. It's not always about agreeing. Sometimes you have to agree to disagree. I've been married 28 years and I'm still, we'll agree to disagree. That's one of my favorite lines to this day.
I've heard
I'll
it.
agree to disagree. You're there. I'll agree to disagree. So it's not always about agreeing everything, but it means understanding where your values intersect with where they don't. And it's so important for you to be in alignment with your values. During counseling, couples are reviewing each partner's values, they're reviewing credit habits, spending styles, and their financial goals to really take a deep dive into the understanding of where they are. Yeah.
Marcel, let me give it to them a different way here, right? Or a similar way.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
think of it as, as a financial compatibility check. Okay, that's what we're talking about here, a financial compatibility check. So you wouldn't enter into a business partnership without reviewing the books, right? You want to make sure that, that everything's aligned, everything's legitimate, everything works with what you're trying to achieve for yourself. Marriage is no different, right? It's
Mhm.
it's a, it's a merger, right? That's what we're
Right.
talking. Marriage is a merger, so you need to make sure those
Exactly.
things align so that you have a sustainable relation. You have a sustainable partnership that will
Yes.
last generations, right? So legacy, lasting generations. So that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, Mark, and another important point in this conversation here is in the importance of alignment and important of looking at everything to make sure you're in alignment is that this is where
Yes.
transparency comes in. This is where
Mhm.
studies show that couples who are openly discussing finance have a higher level of trust and satisfaction. And that is so important. Trust and satisfaction. When I go through values with individuals, so often the feeling of safety and security and trust and integrity and these things come up. And in order to really feel that as far as in a relationship, being open and transparent with your finances and having these conversations just elevates that
Yes.
feeling of trust. So that's just where it is. When money is hidden, resentment grows. And that's one of
Mhm.
those quiet killers of connection. And
Mhm.
I you never want to get to a point where you're hiding what's going on with your money. You
Exactly.
don't lie about it, don't hide it, be honest and be upfront with one another, be transparent with one another. Okay.
Exactly.
Let's move on to C, Mark. We're
Yep.
going to go C, capital strategy. This is where you build your financial playbook together, right, Mark?
Yeah. So during the premarital counseling, um, our couples will review some key questions, such as, how will you handle a joint versus separate account? I kind of touched on that earlier, right?
Hmm.
And again, let me be very clear here. We're not looking to say, oh, you're right and you're wrong. It's about coming together to find out what is the best solution for your particular partnership, right? So how you handle those types of accounts, who's responsible for paying the bills, who's responsible for paying this portion of the bills, that portion of the bills, the whole things, you guys will determine that. Another one is, what's the other one? What's our plans for debt? How do we look at debt elimination or not occurring debt? How do we address life insurance, or insurance in general, not just life insurance? What about investing? What is one person's approach to investment to another one? And this is another big one, because you can have an individual that's very aggressive and another one that's on the other end very conservative, right? So here you are saying, "Oh yeah, we need to go all in on everything," and that conservative person is freaking out because they're like, "Oh my gosh, we're taking so much risk." So you have to understand each other's risk tolerance as well. All these things have to be factored in. Now, keep in mind, I want to be very clear here. I'm going to slow it down to make sure everyone's catching on to this, right? When you're coming together, it's not about control. Okay. It's not about control. It's about clarity. It's about coming together to create a peaceful environment for everyone, not control. Something that Marcel and I talk about all the time is it's freedom within a framework, right? That responsibility, making sure within this framework, this is how we're going to create our freedom. Right. So I want to
Yeah.
be very clear with this. It's so important because Marcella, you and I have heard so much time this sense of control from one spouse because they're limiting me to do this or to do that, not understanding what is the why. What are we
Mhm.
trying to create here? And what are the things that can derail us from our goal? So we need to put a proper framework in place so we stay on task. Marcella, I've never heard anyone say that, oh, you know what? I'm going to ignore these lines on the road because they're restricting me. Okay. I want to be able to just drive across the highway as much as I want to and not allowing these lines to restrict my freedom. No, we have freedom in driving down the road, knowing that everyone should stay in their respected lines. So within that framework, we all have our freedom. It's the same thing. We're not trying to control you. We're just creating an environment that you can have freedom. So I know I
Mm.
said a lot there, but
No, that's
but
so
be
good.
very clear with this. Yeah.
And it just had me thinking that, in this process of creating these strategies and understanding there's a framework that's needed in order to establish emotional peace. This is also where financial intelligence, and I touched I
Ooh.
mentioned it earlier as far as
Yeah.
emotional mastery and emotional intelligence, but I want to emphasize financial intelligence because this is
Mhm.
key. This is a huge part of what we do and what we're teaching and elevating. This is what our clients increase their financial intelligence. And
Yes.
as a reminder, financial intelligence is the ability to make smart, responsible, value based decisions with and about money, especially under emotional stress.
Yes.
And that's a skill every couple needs because at some point, emotions will test your money and money will test your emotions, and those emotions will test your relationship.
Exactly. So I love that. Value-based decisions, not emotional-based decisions, value-based decisions, right? So emotional mastery. So, you want to start early here. You want to set financial roles,
Mhm.
emergency fund, emergency saving goals, protection strategies like life insurance, estate planning, all these things. You need to start having those conversations. And there's nothing better than having a coach to facilitate, to ref if necessary, to
That's
come in
right.
to help make sure that the foundation is set forth. So, Marcella, we have one more letter, right?
Yes, yes. Why your next move. So whether you're engaged, a newly married couple, or seriously dating, this is your cue to take action. This is
Exactly.
what we're talking about. We've given you the layout, the things to talk about, the emotional intelligence and the financial intelligence that's needed, but action on your part is still
Mhm.
needed.
So I already touched on this. This is why you need a financial advisor and a coach so that you can understand both the or the behavioral finance and the family dynamics, right? So it's not just, oh, let me just think about the money. No, it's so much more than that. You got to think about the behavior behind it as well because it is there. Whether you want to admit it or not, it is there. It's present. You may not even be aware of it. So
Yeah.
you want someone who can help you see beyond the numbers so that the why is way beyond your money moves. So you want to make
Yes.
sure that you have someone in place, a coach, hint, hint, that can
Yes.
help you with that, right, Marcella?
And let
So
me add to that, Mark, because I really, again, it's always about prevention. And I'm going to
yeah.
emphasize that once again. You do not want to wait for conflict to start
Mm,
to happen before starting the conversation. And I'm telling you, people have told you, you live in this world, you see that money conversations are difficult. So
Yes.
this is really a no-brainer for, again, engaged individuals, newly married, seriously dating, and ready to have these conversations. It is premarital financial counseling is like fitness. It's easier to build the muscle before you're in a crisis. It's easier to get into health and be preventative about how you eat and exercise before your doctor says, "Oh man, like you got diabetes or you got high blood," all
Exactly.
these things. So understand that this is something that you really need to take seriously if you are in this stage of your life.
I agree 100%. You can look at it this way. Don't wait to learn to swim until you're drowning. You want to
Right,
prepare while the water's calm, right? So,
right.
this is the time to say, hey, we're together. Let's come in agreement. Let's work with a premarital financial counselor to help further our foundation. That's what we're talking about here. And that way, you're starting the foot off right. You know that you are ahead of the curve, that you're doing something that the majority of people out there are not even, it's not even in their radar, right?
Yeah.
And if we're going to go even deeper, you will most likely be the first in your family to set this precedence, right? Again, you are the first gen. So it's not just about, oh, we're the first to make 6 figure, 7 figures, 8 figures, but you're also the first in your family to set an example of how to start it off right.
Mhm. And so, Mark, as we close out and wrap up this episode, I really want, and I think both of us really want you to take something away from this. And one of
Yes.
the things I want you to take away is that love is emotional, right? We understand that love can be emotional, but marriage is behavioral. You understand what I'm saying? Love, when it comes to how we love, we can feel certain ways, but marriage requires choices and decisions on the actions that you take. And those actions will impact your future together. And if
Mhm.
and if you want your marriage to last, your behavior with money must match your belief in the relationship. I'm going to say that again, Mark. I got to repeat certain things.
Yeah, so they can take the notes, right? You should be taking
That's
notes.
right. Your notes. If you want your marriage to last, your behavior with money must match your belief in the relationship.
Yes, I agree 100%. That's why we're talking about this. So, for our first gen wealth builders, this is especially critical. You're not just merging accounts, you're merging family history, you're merging habits, you're merging hopes. All these things are coming together. So, considering, premarital financial counseling, think of it as building the foundation now so
Mhm.
that your legacy can can stand longer, can stand later, can stand for generations. I like to think of it as, you're it's almost like you're creating like your own Egyptian pyramid, for example, right? That you're long and gone, but yet your legacy, your foundation is still standing. And your great, 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 great grandchildren can look back and have that story of look what you did today that they're now building on. But
I
it
love
takes
that.
it takes that effort of, okay, that means we have to make sure that our union comes together and be that example. Marcel, I really feel like as we're talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, just the importance of understanding how this union is going to create this experience. So it's not just about building wealth. It's not just about how much you can bring on to the next generation, but we actually can be a representation of what a strong union looks like when two people come together. And it's not just for how we feel, it's about also aligning our goals, our vision, and coming to agreement with how we are aligning our past experience, our new experience, to our money goals, so that we can create a lasting legacy. What a great example you can set forward for your generations. I mean, I think that is so powerful.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah, that's it's extremely powerful, and that's why we're bringing this to you, to the listeners
Mhm.
today. And
Yeah.
if you are listening here and you're ready to get more information, if you're newlywed, again, engaged, really want more information, or know someone who just got married or is engaged, it is a great time to safeguard your marriage. That's what Mark is talking about. It's safeguarding your marriage. So you can use the link in the description to get more information, to reach out, and just to know where to start with this process. And if you found this conversation valuable, again, share with a friend, share with someone who's
Yeah,
getting married or recently engaged. Spread the word because we understand that premarital financial counseling is not something that a lot of people are doing. And you can hear the passion in Mark and I's voice. I mentioned it earlier and I'll say it again. We designed this program based off of our years and years of experience and what we saw and what we knew we can bring to you to prevent so much lost time, money, heartache if we just nip it in the
exactly.
bud and be preventative.
Exactly right. We want to be proactive, not reactive. So,
There we go.
as we wrap this up here, don't forget to subscribe so that you are catching, you get a chance to recap and to listen. And as Marcella said, share. You this may not be pertinent to you, but you may know somebody else is like, oh, y'all need to jump on this. Y'all need to hear this so that you can have that foundation.
Absolutely. That's right, Mark. So thank you for joining us for another episode of the Legacy Pregame Podcast. And until next time, live well, build wisely,
And prepare with purpose.